Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryszard Piotrowski and I am the president of the University Electoral Committee. Welcome to the meeting where the candidates for the University Rectors will be presented. Rector will be presented. Our meeting is available online. And therefore, let me welcome everyone who is showing us. Professor Eliza Novak from the Faculty of Management, welcome. Professor Paweł Strzelecki from the Faculty of Mathematics, IT and Mechanics, welcome. And Professor Andrzej Tarlecki from the Faculty of Mathematics, IT and Mechanics. Welcome as well, dear candidates. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I also would like to welcome Professor Adam Niewiadomski, an expert for our committee. Today's meeting, when we present the candidates, is a remote meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemics that is currently ongoing. And these are very difficult times. This is a very difficult era for the university, because the university without students, without professors, is empty and is astonishing, is surprising. It's like an island. The situation allows us to think about how fragile and how unpredictable our world is. At once, everything can change. Yet, this world being fragile is not synonymous, is dissimilar to the world of university, because the university is the world of reliability, optimism and faith. Optimism and faith lay the ground for any power, also the rector's power, any authority. And rectors, of course, will have to face the challenges of the authority. And having that in mind, let me open the meeting, let me launch the meeting, during which we present the candidates for the University of Warsaw Rector. The rector's tasks include everything that is related to the university, except for items that are precised in the Act or that are subject to the Senate ruling. These are very difficult and very important tasks, because the rectors take part in the management, deal with the management, HR policy and other very important matters. For this reason, we took every effort in order to make the elections possible, and we also made every effort in order to ensure us observing the rules. The Electoral College selects the candidates for the rector, and subsequently on the 17th of June the rector will be announced. The tenure starts on the 1st of September, a given year. The Electoral College is composed of the representatives of different groups of the university. 20% of the Electoral College are students, constitute students and PhD candidates. The Electoral College of the university was also elected. This college elected the candidates in a pre-election on the 3rd of March. The candidates were also assigned by the university board. And subsequently, these candidates were also viewed by our committee. The committee, on the 21st of May, announced the candidates. This meeting with the candidates should enable the Electoral College to be able to vote for the candidates. This meeting is for us to have a certain opinion about the candidates. The candidates will respond to the university's problems, to current affairs, etc. The university community is serving a greater good, and a bigger good, namely is serving Poland. Therefore, we should see the rector of the university as some sort of a porte-parole, serving on behalf of the university in the country. Our today's meeting will be conducted according to the regulation of the committee. Namely, let me give you the details. First, the candidates will present themselves, their programs, their plans. They have presentations and the order of the presentations will be decided upon, namely we will conduct some sort of a lottery in which the order will be decided. Next, the candidates will respond to 7 questions each. The presentations themselves will last up to 15 minutes. Subsequently to the presentation, we will select questions from the question database. In other words, we will draw the questions from the database, and each of the candidates will respond to the questions I will read. The questions are supposed to be constructed in a way that would allow me to read it quickly. And then each of the candidates will have 5 minutes to respond. The candidate presenting first will also respond first. Following these responses, the final remarks will take place. These remarks or these mini presentations will be also conducted by the candidates. Namely, this will be the last word during the meeting by the candidates, and each of the candidates will have the chance to do so. The Electoral Committee, the Electoral Committee's regulation specifies that now we should draw the candidates' names in order to set the order in which the candidates will present their programs. Namely, as you can see, there is a glass box on the table, and there are the names of the candidates in the box. Namely, in the envelopes that are in the glass box. Let me draw the first envelope. I hope that there is a name inside and that the envelope is not empty. That would be a problem, wouldn't it? Oh yes, indeed, there is a name. Professor Andrzej Tarlecki will present first. Professor, the floor will be yours in a minute. and you had the chance to see the name of the candidate on the piece of paper drawn just a minute ago. Now let me go on, check another envelope. Yes, congratulations, Professor Eliza Novak. This tells us that Professor Paweł Strzelecki will present third. Now we know the order of the events. Thus I can conclude that we can move on to the presentations themselves. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give the floor to Professor Andrzej Terlecki. Professor, the floor is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to start. And I must admit I'm very nervous. I know how to deal with a full room, but the room is empty and I must say that this is very challenging to speak now. That notwithstanding, I will start. First, I would like to tell you a couple of words about the university I would like to have to be the witness of. Now, what is the university of my dreams? It is a great university, an astonishing university, the university of research excellence, of didactic excellence, of good management, and the university, a tree where students also excel, where the university which would be the place to study, to live, a certain homeland for the university community and also for the employees. So these are my dreams that I wrote about, these are my goals that I wrote about in following my decision about becoming a candidate. And these are still my dreams. I also would like to add two things. First of all, these very high standards of the university should accompany the university being diverse, being very diversified. Namely, we are aiming here at different faculties, different curricula, different organizational units, etc., different fields. Yet, the most important thing today, something quite special, and something I would like to underline, is that all the goals, all those big dreams have to be faced with the novelty in the form of COVID-19 pandemics. The last months have been very difficult. We have been afraid about what comes next. We've been anxious about our future, and in this situation we have a new priority. This new priority, again, very important, is the safety and stability of the university structure, of payments, remuneration, the ability to self-develop, to upskill, to gain knowledge, to learn and to teach. This is something that has been obvious, yet now has become a necessity that we have to verbalize and that we have to fight for. This has become a priority not only for the employees but also for students. Students and PhD candidates need to know that the university is still the place where they can get the best qualifications, the best knowledge, and that would prepare them for future life. This certainty, this stability cannot be assured without our work being excellent when it comes to didactics and when it comes to management. Now let me talk about another priority, namely our autonomy. The university has to be autonomous, has to be free from any external, including political impacts. We have to be self-governing, and this autonomy is very important also for didactics and for research. There is no good research without autonomy. And the same applies to teaching. That is what I am convinced of. I think that all these goals, the long-term goals and those short-term goals of ensuring maximum safety and security, are goals that we can reach and that we have been reaching, in fact, step by step during the past months. We have many assets. We have the statutes, which includes changed regulations and changes in the perspective of the COVID-19 pandemic. We also have very good programs, namely the integrated development program. There is also the initiative of excellence, namely a research university, and we also have many other very good initiatives, including the 4EU Plus Alliance. So these initiatives constitute the initiatives of future. Today, in a very difficult situation of the pandemics, we have done a lot. We have done a lot, and we have to do more in order for the university to work even better. What we have wonderful employees, PhD candidates, administrative staff, students, and also other employees are all great people, and a number of these people constitute our chance for excellence. Now, what would I like to do? I wouldn't like to speak about long-term goals here, because you know it, I've written about it. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I will just touch upon about those short-term goals for today, tomorrow, and for the upcoming months. First and foremost, I would like to emphasize the fact that the university is our joint, shared matter, shared goal. This is our common cause. Namely, we should all aim at a better transparency of information, and we should all aim at better circulation of good ideas. We have to find a certain solution here, for instance, by building a good platform of information exchange in order to promote best activities, best ideas, and best possibilities. We've also launched the initiative that can be literally translated as let's hire students and PhD candidates. Professor Eliza Novak has also spoken about this initiative numerously, and this is a great initiative. What we also have to do is to prepare ourselves very well for the upcoming academic year. I know that the pandemics will most probably be alleviated and be taken under control, but we cannot count on the situation being ideal as early as in October. Decisions about what happens next academic year will be taken soon. However, now there is the time for us to reflect upon what has just happened, and this is the time for us to prepare well for the next academic year and think about which elements, which parts of the last months captivating, enriching. For instance, so many of us have started our work with Google Hangouts, Google Meets, and many other new tools. So, ladies and gentlemen, all in all, these are all the priorities. These priorities are partially included in the Initiative of Excellence, and they can be enlarged locally, interdisciplinary, and in many different domains and fields. What we should also remember about is that there have been legal changes in Poland. We have to do a lot prior to the next parametric assessment. For instance, when it comes to looking upon different fields and different domains, so we will also launch several activities in order to support different fields of studies and different domains. I won't touch upon international cooperation. Of course, international cooperation is important. There is nothing without international cooperation. At the same time, let me just reflect upon the fact that the pandemics has changed this cooperation. There is more ongoing online, and there are more meetings online, remote meetings, remote conferences, which we all have to monitor and somehow keep up with in order for us to be able to function. Now, ladies and gentlemen, infrastructure. The multi-annual program will give us new assets, new opportunities, and we have to observe it. We also have to take a look at some aspects of our functioning, of our infrastructure, which had been neglected. For instance, when it comes to dormitories and housing in general, our goal is to provide all the students, all the employees, and all the guests with good housing conditions. IT infrastructure will also be very important, and this is also related to our internal and external cooperation. For the past 2 months, there have been administrative changes. For instance, when it comes to the circulation of documents. Namely, we switched into electronic circulation of documents, which is not fully electronic yet. However, we have to aim at it, and we have to start doing it now, because our successful functioning is related to or is based on the electronic circulation of documents. We also have to think about simplifying different things. Now, let me move on to social matters, namely, for instance, to hardship benefits, welfare, other welfare issues, scholarships, etc. These are all interrelated, and some issues related to scholarships and grants have to be improved. Also, when it comes not only to students but also to employees. We have big funds. For instance, when it comes to welfare matters, also for employees. So we have to use them well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to move on to another matter, and let me give you an example here. This example relates to ecologic matters and sustainability. So let me just comment on that. First of all, we can be proud of our research. We have very good specialists working also with external parties on ecological matters. Another thing that I would like to underline is that we have to popularize our achievements when it comes to ecology. We also have to promote good behavior related to counteracting social climate changes. We all have to look at what we are doing. For instance, we are still drinking from plastic bottles and from plastic cups. Well, perhaps this is just a voice of the past here, but we have to have a look at those climate-related issues. We also have to look at the infrastructure and management. Some of these things are short-term and they are interim. However, they may constitute the base for long-term activities. Last but not least, this will be a difficult tenure. Many decisions, many challenges, many problems, and many choices. All of us, all of the university community will have to face them. I am deeply convinced that we can and we have to face these challenges based on clear criteria and based on the shared experience, as well as concrete action. I would like to be fully engaged together with you in achieving all these goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rector, for presenting your speech. And now we will have the honor to listen to the next speaker, but before that we'll have a small technical break. Thus, I would now like to ask Professor Eliza Novak to take the floor. Professor, the floor is yours. Dear President, dear professors, ladies and gentlemen, before proceeding to my presentation, I would like, on behalf of myself and you, express condolences to our colleague Maciej Duszczyk, whose father has passed away last week. Maciek, we are with you. University of Warsaw is a community of many groups: students, PhD candidates, professors, administrative staffs, librarians, technical staff, but also guards. All of us belonging to these groups have deep in their hearts the flourishing of University of Warsaw so that our alma mater works properly and is visible in Poland, Europe and internationally. Tolerance, searching for truth, respect for dignity are supportive in this process for us. As in previous terms, in this term or in the next term, when you choose the rector of the University of Warsaw and their team, this will continue to be. The university has marvelous achievements in many fields, both in basic research, natural fields, but also in humanities and social sciences. The representatives, the graduates of University of Warsaw are being awarded with Nobel Prizes. We want them to continue to receive these prizes. I am convinced that these and the subsequent rector authorities will do everything in its power to do that. The world has changed, as Rector Terlecki has mentioned. The pandemic has changed a lot. Ourselves has made it impossible for us to meet with students in person, to conduct discussions and to conduct discussion between ourselves. But indeed, the pandemic has demonstrated and revealed positive sides of the university, of the academia and University of Warsaw in particular. We've acquired technical knowledge, we showed that we can organize ourselves and that we can teach remotely the students. Will it continue to be the case? I hope that we won't be teaching remotely all the time, but I know that some of the elements of the knowledge that we've acquired, we will try to use in the future. Our environment has changed. We have the Industry 4.0 economy now. Industrialization, substitution of a man by machine and algorithms is taking place. The university has to adapt to this situation. The organization of the contemporary world is being transformed. The pandemic, but also other processes, lead us to deglobalization, or rather to the shift of main globalized centers of globalization and de-integration of Europe, or at least shifting of these centers of European integration. And the university has to adapt to this new reality. The university indeed changes also internally, as Rector Terlecki has mentioned. The new reform wanted it to become more centralized. When we discussed it in the Senate in 2019, we succeeded in abandoning this course. The university continues to be decentralized. I have been outspoken about it. And we came to an agreement that we should have a decentralized university. Why did I want it to continue to be decentralized? Because I know that only the teachers, the academic staff at different faculties know how to do the research, because they are in charge of research and teaching. And I'm thinking here not only about these huge faculties, but about smaller faculties, which are very often pearls of our university. And just as larger faculties, they should be protected. Should you give me the authority to become the next rector of the University of Warsaw, I will take care of everybody, from smallest to the largest player, for those who are doing their job well. I will also take care of administrative staff, teachers, students, PhD candidates, librarians, technical staff, because all of us, we are together a community, and we should support ourselves in solidarity. In order to implement this main goal, I have established several targets which I want to implement together with you. There are some strategic goals that are obvious, and I know that all of the candidates will talk about these. For example, intensification and raising the level of our academic research, and mainly through the organizational support and financial support for these. As I've mentioned, I do believe, and I'm convinced that my colleagues at the university who are principal investigations, they know what to study and how to study, but they don't have sometimes organizational support and financial support. So when it comes to organizing research groups, labs, they are talking about the financial support. And research labs are important not also for life sciences, but also for humanities and social sciences. I would like to point you to the improvement of the international position of the university, both in terms of research excellence and teaching. This is not a simple thing. We know how hard it is to increase our position in terms of research. We need to publish more in international journal. We need to have more international exchange. We need to exchange our students, our staff, and our PhD candidates. This is clear, and we should support it. If we don't do that, we'll never succeed. But the pandemic also shows us that large, huge international exchange and the role that is played by the students in this process may be complicated by the pandemic. Many universities are on the verge of bankruptcy, not only in Poland, not only in Europe, but across the world. I've recently read a report which concerns American universities such as Princeton, MIT, Harvard, or Johns Hopkins University. A sizable number of students, 30 to 40% of students who are international students, came back to their countries of origins. So, of course, we have to count on internationalization, but we have to proceed cautiously with it. The third point, strategic point, is to extend our cooperation with the outer environment. Our outer environment is not only business. Well, many people have pointed out that I pay too much attention to business because I'm from the Faculty of Management. Yes, indeed, I did pay a lot of attention to business because I do believe that a decent business who is decently developing in Poland and across the Europe can become the third source of financing of our marvelous university. But I do think also that cooperating with business gives us an opportunity for internships, for employing students, for gaining means to conduct applied research. But this is not only about business. We want to cooperate with institutes, we want to cooperate with the best universities in Poland, especially with the Warsaw Medical University. We want to sign contracts with the third sector, with the NGOs, and I believe that having faced the collapse during the pandemic, I know that they will need solid research and that they will be interested in cooperating with us, and we will thus create workplaces for our graduates and will be able to gain financial support for our university. The fourth goal of my possible term would be to increase the diversification and incomes of our university. On the one hand, I do believe that we need to improve the efficacy of the use of the finances that we have from the state budget, but we also need more sources of financing from different sorts of foundations, investment funds, but also from the economy. The fifth goal is to support the development of the academic staff, employees, students and PhD candidates at the University of Warsaw. You can support them financially. This may be a challenge, but it's possible to be implemented. For example, the administrative staff can can participate in grants conducted by our academic staff. And I do have in my heart the situation where our students and PhD candidates become researchers so that they can earn the money. I think that we are converging with Professor Terlecki on this point. But we also can support this goal by preparing career development for our administrative staff and academic staff. We are working for 30, 40, 50 years at the university, but we are not forced to that. And I know that many librarians, administrative and technical staff are working because they want to. So all these people should have a clear career development pathway so that having worked magnificently for our university after 25 or 30 years, they could find a different pathway for their professional and life development. The university can give them opportunity by training them, by conducting postgraduate courses for them. Another priority would be sustainable development of the university and the intensification of the use of the multi-annual development program. We have many things to do. There's been many things have been done, but we still need to use the finance that we have more effectively. And I'm convinced that we can get more financing and we can develop a university in a harmonious way. Harmonious between the development path, research path, student and teaching path, and welfare path. And all these need to be developed. We should be recovering, we should rebuild the housing for the students, for the employees at our university. These tasks should be taken up immediately if we want to be not only a University of Warsaw, but a university who is a leader in Poland. The seventh priority is to improve the situation of the graduates on the labor market. These can be conducted in two ways. First of all, we know that we should treat well, inform and respect the students right from the start of their career at the University of Warsaw, so that they feel that when they graduate, that this is their home. And I'm convinced that if these students will succeed, they will support us. This is what is happening across the world in the best universities, and we should strive to do that precisely. Now, in terms of the graduates, we have to boast about their successes. We should create like a star alley for our graduates. At the Faculty of Management, we have created an entrepreneurship hub, and we should create those hubs to show off, to boast about our graduates and what they are doing. We should create also postgraduate studies, MBA, but also other studies for those who study, those who graduated from philologies, from applied linguistics, from physics and maths, because they will be working not only in their taught professions, but in other professions. So there is plenty of things to do. We need to support our careers office and our careers officers at the faculties. Those are strategic points. But there are also things that are short-term and that concern our tomorrow and our reality in 1 year or 2 years from now. And on this point, I would like to point your attention to these short-term goals, these operational goals that relate to proper use of our technological and human capacity and organizational capacity. We've learned a lot during the pandemic on how to organize ourselves, how to act, how to work. But we should be preparing contingency plans should the pandemic return. Many important and distinguished physicians and experts believe that the pandemic will last for more than several months. We should be prepared for this. We should be prepared to guarantee stability of finances for our faculties. We should look at the algorithm for financing our faculties. We should look at whether it's the fault of the small faculties that they have financial problems. I think this is not really the case. We should improve our technical conditions and housing conditions. We know, because we've heard about it at the Senate Commission, that 2 faculties will face huge technical problems. We should make our management procedures more agile. We should improve our electronic circulation of documents, or rather actually introduce them. We should take decisions quickly, because sometimes we have good decisions which are taken quite slowly, in terms of weeks or months even. There is no doubt that we should help and support the Dean's office, the secretaries who are dealing with students and PhD candidates. They cannot stand in huge lines. They should not waste their time by going from one place to the other to fix a small and simple thing. Perhaps we could connect with urban transport organizer and municipal transport to hire some of the buses, several buses to drive our students. I think it's pretty feasible. We have intellectual capacity represented by my colleagues from the mathematics, IT, and mechanics faculty. We can do that. Now, the welfare issues, these should be improved right now. Both the students, residents, both those employees who work at these beautiful facilities. Unfortunately, our Hera hotel it's beautifully located, but we cannot invite anybody because of its conditions. How to do that? Well, we can use budgetary means. The Ministry of Science and Higher Education are financing us, but we cannot do much more about it. They continue to assure us that there will be some free money to use for us, but let me remind you that we can transfer from one item to the other. So our main goal is to obtain these means, the money to be then flexible with financing it. And then externally conceived money and grants. Those are two important means for financing our goals. Now, as far as grants are concerned, we have specific money destined to them, and then there are these external finances where we can get cooperating with governmental agencies, NGOs, and the business. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and now I would like to invite Professor Paweł Strzelecki. Professor, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Let me just open the presentation.
Dzień dobry Państwu.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. If we were to put what I want to say in 3 words, that would be, let's build a community. Actually, these are 4 words. Let's build a true community. Ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't like to delve into the details of our long-term plans. I would like to focus on the short-term plans. And at the very beginning, I would like to say that we are meeting in very specific times. Therefore, we have to think about the University of Warsaw 2 ways. First, we have to think short-term in the light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Namely, we have to think about the conclusions that the epidemic has brought about. We have to ask ourselves how to function, how to enhance our activities. We have to think about what to do when the new wave of the pandemic comes, if the new wave of the pandemic comes. And we also have to think about how to ensure the safety and security of work at the University of Warsaw. At the same time, we have to think long-term. We need to think about planning the curricula not for one single tenure, but for much, much longer, because the university is a long-term functioning facility, both when it comes to the effects of teaching on the graduates' job market, and also when it comes to other affairs. We've proposed our tentative program and our plans. We've also consulted this program with the employees and with different parties. I would like to treat my program as a living body, as a living cell, which can be changed, enhanced, and which constitutes the result of us listening to the community. That is why I would like to start with a certain assessment diagnosis of the ongoing situation. On one hand, the 2.0 Act had a certain impact on our functioning. It has been introduced 2 years ago. It was introduced 2 years ago. And due to that, we have been sharing both the advantages and the disadvantages of the Act having been launched. Therefore, we have to aim at solidarity, understanding and common action. We have to act jointly and respect one another. In fact, we shouldn't think about the university bubbles here. These don't constitute the problem of our community. In fact, the division of our community constitutes the problems here. In fact, I can see the University of Warsaw as broken into 2 halves. I've been talking to the PhD students and to my colleagues. They would say, well, yes, we've been dealing with the university of 2 speeds, with a 2-speed university, where the gap where a certain fissure divides the university community into 2 communities. Next, we have to bear in mind that there are some people who say that the future of the university is to level down the playing field instead of leveling it up. This is not true, ladies and gentlemen. We have to build a community here. Therefore, I would like to tell you what I plan. First of all, the new Act gives huge authority to the rector, and I can see this authority as responsibility. I also think about the work at the university as a collaborative work. Therefore, I've proposed potential deputy rectors. All of them are 50 plus. They have huge expertise and experience. And at the same time, they've worked at the university for a long time. This team would include Professor Katarzyna Kopczewska from the Faculty of Economic Sciences. When it comes to this candidate, I would like to observe the law, of course, because this candidate has to be accepted by the students. Research would be up to Professor Iwona Kusz from the Faculty of Polish Studies. When it comes to finances, Professor Zbigniew Rogulski would be responsible from this. He is a chemist from the Faculty of Chemistry, having a huge knowledge about both theoretical and applied sciences. Next, international affairs and internationalization. This would be up to Professor Marek Wancowski from the Faculty of History. I also plan to assign HR and employees affairs to another deputy rector, and the name of this rector hasn't been decided upon yet. Of course, I will let you know what my decision is. Now, what I would like to do, first of all, to level up the playing field by introducing new IT tools and measures. I also would like to introduce clear instructions related to sanitary regime. I also would like to introduce very clear schemes of the administrative architecture functioning. Next, I would like to delve into those aspects of the university which are under the risk of obtaining worse parametric assessment. And next, I would like to introduce obligatory screenings for the employees and students. Next, a fast electronic path for applying for benefits. And then I also would like to underline the fact that we have to invest in people and in working conditions. I would like to move on to the working conditions. What we need here is a certain transparency of procedures and also electronic circulation of documents. What do we also need? First, decisions of the rector's authorities and the availability of IT resources. Next, we have to support libraries, especially those who are facing the need to conduct a certain selective analysis of their resources and yet are underprivileged. We have very good resources, especially at the Ochota campus. And here I would like to just emphasize the fact that we cannot count on external funding, on external support. Why? This is because there are different challenges here, and we have to face these challenges, including economic challenges. Next, let me go back to the community and to the working conditions. I would like to take small steps here, yet including the green metric assessment, namely becoming a part of this assessment system, applying for the assessment. So far, only the University of Technology has become a part or has applied for the assessment. At the same time, I would like to underline the importance of students as members of research groups. Many of these students become members of the academic staff subsequently, either at our university or at other universities of the world. Therefore, we should support them in their pursuits for the academic career, for the research career. Last but not least, I would like to tell you a couple of words about values. The role of the university, nor of the authorities, is to engage in politics and political life. At the same time, sometimes we have to take a certain stand when it comes to legal order and when it comes to different affairs, because the university is a cultural and social institution. As a rector, I would deeply like to avoid certain situations. However, they cannot be avoided fully, and I think that the best university in Poland should have a certain social role, and this is the university that I would like to serve. Thank you so much. Professor, thank you very much for your presentation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us move on to the next part of our meeting. This part of our meeting includes our candidates responding to questions. These questions were received by email starting from announcing the candidates up until the very last presentation now. According to the rules, I will now draw 7 questions from the general database. Each and every candidate will respond to these questions in the order defined previously, starting from the candidate who presented first. Now, let me give it a try. This is the question number 1. This is question number 1. I will read the questions subsequently, but let me draw all the questions. This is question number 2. Okay, let me mark this question as question number 3. And we also have question number 4. Question number 5. And ladies and gentlemen, question number 6. And the very last question, question number 7. Now let me move on to responding, or actually to the candidates responding. Each and every candidate will have 5 minutes for giving the answer. According to the rules, question number 1 will be first answered by Professor Andrzej Tarlecki. Next, we will hear from Professor Eliza Novak, and then Professor Paweł Strzelecki. Let me read the question. The question is as follows. How will the process of language certification and language teaching be enhanced? And this applies to students who are not studying at language-related institutions and faculties. So, for instance, not at the faculty of English. This is the question asked by Ewa Górczyńska. Would you like to repeat the question? The lady who is Mrs. Górczyńska, who has asked the question, is from the School of Foreign Languages. So once again, the question is about enhancing certification, language certification for students of non-language related curricula. Before I'll start, I would like to apologize for mentioning plastic cups. Apparently they are here for health-related reasons. And now let me move on to responding to the question. Ladies and gentlemen, language teaching, this is a very important matter when it comes to our didactic interventions. Language teaching or language upskilling should constitute a very important part of our curricula, because language is a means of communication in international communities. In our standard curricula, there are 240 hours dedicated to language didactic interventions. And, ladies and gentlemen, this is a lot. In comparison with other universities in the country, I think we are pioneering because usually it's 180 hours dedicated to language teaching. I don't think this is too little. However, I think that enhancing the level of teaching is something that we should look into within those 240 hours of language teaching. What do we have to do? We have to invest. And we have to invest a lot because it does cost a lot. We have, during the last tenure, we have doubled the value of the so-called language coins, and namely the value of our teaching units, so to speak. This should be continued because good financing of language schools leads to better classes and to less numerous groups. This is a frequently asked question. I'm always responding, well, yes, you all know, and I know, that there is a huge difference, there is a huge gap between learning in a group of 40 and in a group of 12. But better and better classes conducted by our teachers constitute the solution here. Thank you so much. And now I would like to give the floor to Professor Novak. Thank you so much. Apart from what Rector Tarlecki has proposed, I would like to add one thing. Namely, I propose introducing lectures conducted in foreign languages. For instance, of several dozen hours. I also would like to propose the possibility of taking part in workshops, internships, practica, etc. International summer schools. I know that financing the participation of students in these initiatives is costly. However, I think that during the 8th or 9th semester, a given certification should take place. I also think that students who study for full semesters only should also be taught foreign languages. I'm not 100% convinced about what I am going to tentatively propose. I think I would like to consult on that. However, I would like to introduce several cycles of certification. Perhaps that would actually encourage both students and teachers to work more and better. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And now the last candidate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I will start with something obvious. Namely, language is a tool for communication. Now, how to enhance, how to develop the process of certification? Well, I have several remarks here. First of all, students should be we should demand quite a lot from our students. Students come with different abilities and with different knowledge. Some of them are very language fluent, very fluent in foreign languages, sometimes not in the field of their studies, and some are not. Therefore, I also propose to have very good aptitude tests, to invest in good aptitude tests. Secondly, I would like to give teachers a chance to upskill when it comes to the language, didactic and psychosocial skills. Next, I think that remote classes are not beneficial to our students and do not translate into, for instance, speaking skills. B2 exams are exams that our BE students take. Now, MA students take C1 exams. These exams have a, let's call it a professional component. So, another thing that I would like to propose is to develop language teaching at the MA level, and I don't think that only language teachers should be asked to do that. In fact, I think that the whole didactic intervention should constitute a collaborative work. On one hand, this work should be done during MA seminars, and on the other hand, we should also offer a series of conversation classes, speaking classes, laboratories. We should conduct different sessions where participants should also be encouraged to share their experiences. And I think this is something that we should focus on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your answer. Let us pass to the next question. Professor Eliza Novak will reply as first, as a second person, Professor Strzelecki, and the round will be concluded by Professor Terlecki. Let me read out the question. What plan have you got when it comes to leveling the situation of the PhD candidates from PhD studies and doctoral schools, from the old and the new system? And which of the deputy rectors will be in charge of doctoral candidates? Can you read it again? Or at least in a nutshell explain it. So plans about on PhD candidates, right? This is a question addressed by Katarzyna Bujak, and it goes like that. What is your plan for leveling the situation between the PhD candidates from the old system, that is to say from the doctoral studies, and from the new system, that is doctoral schools, in order to ensure that they can enjoy the same opportunities for development, financial support? And which of your deputy rectors will be in charge of doctoral candidates? I hope that I have not surpassed the 2-minute limit. That is my limit for reading out the question. Can I ask you to address this question? As far as deputy rectors are concerned, I think the one who deals with research will be cooperating with PhD candidates. As far as leveling the scholarships that are enjoyed by the doctoral candidates from the old and new systems, I see 2 possibilities, or actually 3 possibilities. First of all, relocation of finances that are granted by the state. The second opportunity in this field is, and I have to make a caveat that I don't know how much do we need, but the second opportunity would be to gain finances, because that's something that we have to do within 2 or 3 years, and after that period the situation will be normalized, because there will only be new PhD candidates, new order PhD candidates. So we need to gain external financing from the Ministry of Science and Higher Education, or financing or subsidizing PhD candidates from the old system using NGOs, using finances from NGOs or business community. Thank you very much. Now Professor Paweł Strzelecki will address this question. Ladies and gentlemen, in my action plan for the next months, I have proposed establishing 6 task forces. One of them will investigate the status of PhD candidates within our community. Formally, they are treated as the students of the 3rd grade. This is the official Polish name, but in fact, they are fully fledged members of our community who, on the one hand, are continuing to learn, but on the other hand, they do conduct research and teach, just as we academic staff do. They just have very little experience in these fields. And I think people who have similar duties should be treated in a similar way. And I want to take an egalitarian viewpoint on this issue. I want to include PhD candidates in this dialogue. I don't know how to do it financially. The predecessor have said a few words on that. But I know that equal rights usually mean equal duties. So ensuring rights should be connected with duties and reliable assessment of PhD candidates' progress. I am in a position to talk in this way, in an open, honest way. The second part of the question was about which of my deputy rectors would be in charge of PhD candidates. Well, I do not see the workings of my team as working in different silos and areas. Initially, I would say that the academic or the scientific needs of the PhD candidates, micro grants, conferences supporting them in acquiring grants, will be supported by the Deputy Rector for Research and his team or her team. So when it comes to self-studying, but also teaching, they will be supported by the Deputy Rector for Student Affairs. And as I have said, the details will be established before the September 1st, so before the start of my term. I do see a role for the Deputy Rector for Finances, because they will be in charge of financing scholarships and the status of PhD candidates in our community. Thank you very much, and now I would like Professor Andrzej Terlecki to address this question. Let me start by the second part of the question. I do think that individual PhD candidates' issues should be addressed by the Deputy Rector for Teaching of students and PhD candidates, because they are in charge of giving a credit, passing the academic year, etc., including the PhD candidates. But this has to be coordinated tightly with the Deputy Rector for Science and Research, because the PhD candidates are dealing with research, and as my predecessor has said, PhD candidates are in fact young researchers, and they should, or early career researchers, and they should be supported in their efforts. In terms of the difference between the old system and the new system, or the faculty and the university system, what I need to say is that we are bounded by the legal regulations and their status differs. These should be, according to our possibilities, leveled out, but we cannot do everything because there are some legal constraints on this. As far as the scholarships are concerned, I think that the scholarships are regulated, the minimum threshold are regulated by the law. And of course we may experience lower scholarships for the old system PhD candidates, but as many of PhD candidates would know, there is a rise in the amount of money donated to the scholarship fund. We've had a consultation and we agreed upon the pathway of rising the amount of the scholarship, but this will take place gradually. We cannot do it in a single moment, in an instant, but we have to keep in mind that it's not only about scholarships. We need to finance research conducted by the PhD candidates, and as far as the old order or old model PhD students, only half of them receive scholarships, but we need to support them in their academic life in terms of how can they go to the summer schools, conferences, etc. This needs to be supported. This is being supported by micro grants and by the Excellence Initiative. This is very important. And the final point that we have to take care of, because it's an important thing to do, and there are some differences across the universities, the additional work of the PhD candidates needs to be rewarded financially. Especially the teaching needs to, they need to get paid for teaching, as anybody else would do so. Also, research projects should also bring them more, should be paid for them. Both their own research projects and the projects in which they participate. So these are the avenues that you can use to improve the financial condition of all the PhD candidates. And last but not least, working conditions. We need to support working conditions with the growth of the university infrastructure. We have to have a place for PhD candidates at the faculties, as is the case on many faculties. They have to have a desk, they have to have computers, or any infrastructure should they need it. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for these answers. Now we will be faced with the third question. As a first person, Professor Paweł Strzelecki will answer this question. Subsequently, Professor Andrzej Tawlecki will answer this question, and as the last person, Professor Andrzej Z. Novak. Eliza Novak, sorry. Question from Michał Goszczyński. What is the role of teaching quality in the development of University of Warsaw in the context of EU Plus Alliance and the educational initiatives implemented under this framework? Shall I repeat? Yes, I will repeat that. What is, according to you, the role of quality of teaching in the development of the University of Warsaw, including within the context of the EU Plus Alliance and the education initiatives implemented under this banner? Shall I repeat it once again? No, thank you very much. Let me start this time with an anecdote. Not because I want to amuse you, but I think that teaching is a very important thing. And I think all of us, virtually all of us, regard teaching as something very important. But the teaching quality has been sort of upended by so many legalities that sometimes it's very difficult to answer this question. And it was a Holy Mother who said to one of the painters, don't paint me while sitting on your knees, paint me just well. And I think this applies to the teaching. You have to come on time to the classes. Now, if our imagination and memory fails us, we have a paper with our notes or slides who can help us out. And I think that we should look at our classes within a perspective of a semester or a year, globally, but also locally, paying attention to what our auditorium says, what is being missed out by them, and what is grasped by them. I think we should talk about it. We shouldn't be afraid to critically assess and openly assess our classes. The students should be in a position and should not be afraid to talk about our classes. They should be well aware that people will listen to them in the dean's office, in the secretaries, and people there will be friendly to them. And I think university is now assessing these classes, but conclusions should be drawn more often from these assessments. In terms of how the curricula are shaped. Now, as far as the 4EU Plus Alliance cooperation is concerned, we need to cooperate with good institutions, and these institutions are excellent, and we should be partners with them. We should try to learn best practices from them. But of course, the assessment of our teaching quality, of what we are doing together with our students, for our students and PhD candidates, is very important. Because only if we do a good job, people will be willing to conduct double degree contracts with us. And so we should be humble, and we should do our job. And this is what I think, and this is what I will implement should you choose me. And now I would like to ask Professor Andrzej Terlecki to answer this question. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a question that can be addressed over many, many hours, because teaching is something that is a huge part of our academic work at the university. You cannot imagine a university without teaching, and since we are doing it, we have to do it well. And the quality of teaching needs to be taken care of in many dimensions. Professor Strzelecki has mentioned the individual dimension, so all the classes at our university should be conducted properly, decently. They should be assessed by the students. Our questionnaires administered at the end of the course should be improved, because these differ from one faculty to the other. We should take them into account, and also take account of any complaints that the students may have over individual employees of our university. And also we should support those of us who have some imperfections in the classes that they conduct. I think, as in many fields of our university, we should be training people, we should be cooperating with them, and we should give a hand to those of us who are early career teachers. We should, of course, repeat those obvious things, such as don't talk to the students while you are facing the blackboard, because they won't be able to listen to what you say. So training, supervision and cooperation for enhancing teaching quality is very important. On the other hand, teaching quality or quality of teaching is in something indispensable. And we should have a review, a revision of different fields of study and see if they overlap, and see also different curricula at our fields and see if they are fit for the present and for the future. Fit them with the current state of knowledge, needs of the students, and we should also look at what is exactly that we want to teach these students. And as Professor Strzelecki mentioned, it's not about paperwork. We need to act in order to genuinely improve the quality of teaching. We should de-bureaucratize this process. This is something very, very, very important. And I will add to this something which is my hobby. I think this is something that I would really love to do. I would like to flexibly, I would like to allow individual students to flexibly shape their curricula. Finally, on an international plane, and this is something I've been mentioning a lot, the 4EU Plus Alliance allows us or gives us an opportunity to cooperate within a group of well-respected universities across Europe and create a joint curricula. And my dream is to create such a joint curricula where students start their studies in Warsaw, then go to Paris, then go to Prague, or to other 4EU plus universities. I think those international curricula which are open and strive for admitting excellent students is something important for us. Another thing which is important is that within 4EU Plus Alliance we can award the students with 2 degrees, both in MA programs but also in PhD program. The co-tutel system that have been working in many faculties for quite a long time is something important, and this is where we should be heading. Thank you very much, Professor. And I would now like to ask Professor Eliza Novak to answer this question. Thank you very much. Undoubtedly, teaching quality is the most important thing for teaching and studying at the university. I can share my personal thoughts on teaching. I am absolutely certain at this point in time that the only thing that really matters is how you teach and not what you teach. At this moment of time, I think we shouldn't concentrate on delivering knowledge, but on analyzing critically and the information and drawing critical conclusions from what the students are being presented with. If I were to mention some characteristics that should be part and parcel of our teaching, would be validity, reliability, discussion, tutoring, and always critical. And I think the most important thing is to pose questions and seek for answers, no matter if you find the answer or not. And I think the students should have this anxiety to study, should have the curiosity to study. And I've been to many places, from China to South Africa and the States, and I've been to and I've seen students from many cultures, and I've been teaching them in many languages. And I know that my experiences tell me that if you do these things, you will always be assessed well. I think 4U Plus is an important program, but there are other programs. At my faculty, for example, we have a scheme that's been working for 15 or 16 years. We have global MBA program, which we conduct together with the Chinese, the Germans, and the Americans. And there are 40 students, 10 from each of these universities from these countries, and they come to each of these universities for a semester. And this is bringing its fruits. And I think our students are really great in this program. Our lecturers are really great. And I think the teaching quality at the University of Warsaw is, to a large extent, is as good as at those universities that I have mentioned before. So I do not envisage a dramatic transformation in terms of teaching quality due to our cooperation within the 4EU Plus Alliance. Of course, we'll benefit from different teaching methods. We will benefit from a discussion because these universities have different traditions. But I do believe that both the students of the University in Warsaw and the lecturers from this university who will be teaching at these different universities will face up to the challenges. Thank you very much. With that, we can address the fourth question.
The first to answer will be Professor Andrzej Terlecki. Next we will hear from Professor Eliza Novak, and then the floor will be given to Professor Paweł Strzelecki. Here's the question, not a short one in fact. I think I will have to repeat it. There it goes. Starting in October 2019, PhD candidates teaching is held in interdisciplinary doctoral schools. The University of Warsaw has 4 schools, 3 of them related to disciplines, and there is also the interdisciplinary school. After a year of their functioning, what is your assessment, what is your opinion about the success of this solution? Which organizational elements needs call for amendment? Are you in favor of the current system for big doctoral schools? Or as the rector, will you argue in favor of changes when it comes to the number and the scope of functioning of these schools? Would you like me to repeat? Yes, please. Fair enough. Here it goes. The question refers to doctoral schools, namely, since October 2019, PhD candidates teaching has taken place in interdisciplinary doctoral schools. The University of Warsaw has launched 4 of these schools. How do you assess the solutions taken at the university after 1 year of these 4 schools functioning? 3 discipline-related schools and 1 interdisciplinary schools. What are the areas of improvement? Are you in favor of the ongoing system, of the current system of 4 big schools? Or perhaps Will you argue in favor of introducing changes into the number and the scope of activity of these schools? Would you like me to repeat? Professor, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the PhD candidates training starts in October, on the 1st of October. We've launched 4 doctoral schools, 1 year ago. Of course, the admission process preceded this launching. Yes, I am in favor of big doctoral schools, and I think that 4 schools seem appropriate for a large-scale university like ours. I think that we should be able to train over 1,500 PhD candidates, hence 300-400 per school. I think this is doable and organizational. I think that discipline-related doctoral schools are a solution beneficial for the university and for PhD students. I think that there is a key element of doctoral training here, namely the PhD candidates can cooperate. There is a chance of learning about not only one's own discipline, one's own field, but also benefiting from the experience of other fields and subfields, many of them interdisciplinary. I think that this character of the new solution is very important for a young person's training, and I know it from my own experience. I know how important it is for conducting research and studying a discipline. I think that having a wide look, a spectrum of certain points of view is very beneficial. Of course, it doesn't mean that we cannot introduce changes, we cannot enhance the current condition of these schools. These schools have been launched very fast because the first admission was conducted in a manner completely different from what we used to know. The first year is the year of gaining experience, including framework programs, framework curricula. I think that the admission process and those framework curricula, especially when it comes to obligatory classes, need to be reanalyzed very thoroughly. And I think that they should also be changed. I think that it is beneficial for a young person, for a young researcher, to have a spectrum of possibilities of working, collaborating, gaining experience not only in one very specialized field, but also in other subfields. And this is actually something that the joint classes are for. At the same time, these doctoral schools cannot be schools of everything. We cannot aim at teaching students everything. And I think that what should dominate is research and also a certain degree of specialization. We cannot forget about specialization and think about teaching everything only. This also relates to supervisors. So yes, I do think this is a good solution. And I think that they are beneficial for students especially when it comes to this initial period of teaching a spectrum of different skills. However, this interdisciplinarity constitutes only a portion of PhD candidate training, and the rest should be in relation to particular research. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Professor Eliza Novak. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You may be aware of the fact that I wasn't in favor of launching the doctoral schools. However, it didn't matter that much because the Act was constituted the regulatory document here. I am not a specialist in this field. At the same time, I've talked to a number of PhD candidates and to the representatives of student councils, of PhD student councils. Now, what I see are 4 key elements that should be subject to reanalysis. First of all, admission, candidate assessment, granting a spot, and the selection of candidates and supervisors. I think that since the doctoral schools constitute a certain share of the university architecture, we should allow them to function. We should accept them. I think that we can reassess following a certain cycle, a certain period, namely after 4 years. So when we have the first doctoral schools graduates, we will have defenses then. Yet, as early as now, I can state that there are some elements we should reassess. Thank you so much, Professor. Now, I would like to give the floor to Professor Paweł Strzelecki. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This was a very descriptive question, starting with October 2019 and stating that it is October 2019 when we launched the 4 doctoral schools. Namely, we have life sciences, humanities schools, and there is also the interdisciplinary school, the smallest one. This school allows students to conduct research that is related to both law and math, or interdisciplinary in other aspect. I have one remark here, namely, I think that we haven't taken one thing into consideration. Why 4? Why 4 schools? I don't think that we have devoted too much attention to it because we didn't have time to introduce those doctoral schools. We had to observe the law. At the same time, I think that we could have taken a closer look at this issue, because this is what the best universities in the world have done. We are not dissimilar from these universities, including organizational matters. So, which elements need enhancement? Of course, this is my subjective opinion. However, I think it's not only mine. The open letter of one of the presidents of research councils also includes similar remarks to mine. I also think that research councils should be the bodies which we consult with. We also should consult different groups of supervisors, PhD candidates, teachers, etc. currently a number of groups cooperate. Hence, we have different points of view, we have different challenges, we have different arguments, and this all calls for our ability to be flexible and also to accept different solutions. Now, I also would like to comment on the organizational structure. I think that the mechanisms of cooperation should be very transparent and clear. I also think that admission committees should be composed in a more transparent way and in a more efficient way. At the same time, let me comment on one challenge, one problem that is, I would say, typically Polish, namely we don't trust one another enough, but this is something we can work on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now let me move on to question number 5. The first to answer will be Professor Eliza Novak, next Professor Paweł Strzelecki, and then Professor Andrzej Tarlecki. The question was asked by Mrs. Natalia Groniewska. Here it goes. What is your plan when it comes to leveling up the playing field for female and male PhD candidates? From PhD studies, actually participating in PhD studies and doctoral schools. So there are those two kinds of schools, otherwise referred to as the old and new system. And the question refers to the plan of ensuring the same development possibilities, financial aid and support, etc. I don't actually know what etc. here means, but perhaps it is important. What is your plan to ensure interdisciplinarity of research conducted by PhD candidates at the University of Warsaw? But this is not the end of the question. How do you see, or what is your idea of an ideal, of a perfect collaboration between the PhD candidate and the supervisor? I emphasize this is about a perfect cooperation. What should be the student council's role when it comes to electing a deputy rector who is to be responsible for PhD candidates' affairs? I think that was more than 2 minutes, in fact. But the question remains. So would you like me to repeat? Did you grasp the gist of the question? This is also a test, dear gentlemen. Well, I conclude that yes, you did. Hence, I would like to ask Professor Eliza Novak to respond. You have 5 minutes. Thank you so much. I can see that PhD candidates do know quite a bit about PhD studies, and they also touch upon many different subjects. Let me start by the first part of the question. Actually, I think that we have already responded to that, namely leveling up the playing field for PhD candidates functioning in the old and new system. On one hand, we can think about dedicating a share of the university funds to this matter. I would also think about getting external funding. As my colleagues say, I also think that same work should be given same remuneration. So financial support should be granted to PhD candidates. Now, interdisciplinarity. This is not a simple matter. From the legal point of view, or from the administrative point of view, we do have interdisciplinary research. There are doctoral students representing different fields and coming from different faculties. Does it solve the problem? Well, I'm not quite sure. This is the very beginning of our journey with the new system, and I think that we do have to wait with the assessment until a certain period is covered, until some time passes. I think that shared research, joint research, is something that works best for interdisciplinarity. Therefore, I think that supervisors should apply with PhD candidates for grants. And I think that PhD candidates and supervisors representing different fields and disciplines should also cooperate. Then interdisciplinarity will be granted and will take place. I think that we can also encourage PhD candidates to conduct classes within or beyond those 60 obligatory teaching hours. I don't think there is a one single perfect solution. Therefore, we should look at the problem from different angles. Now, perfect cooperation between the supervisor and the PhD candidate. I'm not sure whether a perfection exists in this matter. Well, we can aim at this perfection via joint research, studies, and those could lead to the masterpiece in the form of the PhD work, of the PhD thesis. The supervisor and the candidate could engage in going to a conference together, and the same applies to research and classes. In the Anglo-Saxon system, there are joint discussions with PhD candidates, and perhaps this could be an option. I don't think any regulatory work would work, so to speak. I think that we need a spark here. And this spark can be literal at some faculties, but it also has to be, it has to occur, it has to be there between the supervisor and the PhD candidates. It's not that objective. Now let me move on to the role of PhD candidates when it comes to electing a deputy dean for doctoral affairs. Now the deputy rector for student affairs is, according to my colleagues, to take care of PhD candidates' affairs as well. So the situation in this case, if we take this angle, is quite clear. I wasn't able to anticipate matters that much. Namely, I said that the Deputy Rector for Research would be responsible for PhD candidates' affairs. And this is because I think I would like, in fact, to have PhD thesis, PhD work conducted in the field of research. So perhaps this is a certain solution. I wouldn't imagine, or I don't think I would avoid consulting PhD candidates in this matter. Their opinion is as important as the opinion of MA and BA students. But then we also have to think about a situation in which PhD students would veto a certain candidate. What would I do? I don't have a clear answer here. I think I would engage into some sort of dialogue with the PhD candidates. I think I would give them some arguments. But of course there is also another solution, namely the potential candidate for Deputy Rector should be consulted with PhD candidates. Now, Professor Strzelecki, thank you so much. The first part of this question related to leveling up the playing field for PhD candidates in the old and new system has already been delineated, or has already been answered to. Let me repeat. I would like to minimize the gap between these two systems, or these two groups of candidates. I will launch a task force, and one of my task forces, 6 task forces, will be responsible for solutions, for thinking about solutions. Now let me move on to the role of student councils in electing the Deputy Rector. First of all, I think that the law, the Act and the statutes are to be observed, and this is not up for discussion. Secondly, I think it is highly important to constantly cooperate with PhD students. Who should cooperate with PhD students? Well, the Deputy Rector for Research and for Student Affairs. Both of these rectors will be responsible for a number of matters related to PhD candidates. For instance, the Deputy Rector for Student Affairs will be responsible for timetables, agendas, and this does refer to PhD candidates as well. Now, about the interdisciplinarity and the perfect cooperation. Let me move on to interdisciplinarity first. This cannot be imposed on someone. It is needed where a person asks questions that are interdisciplinary. For instance, a PhD student in archaeology needs to delve into visual data analysis, into biochemistry, and also into IT. Let us take another example. There is a PhD candidate who is constructing tools for automated decision making based on machine calculation and based on visual data analysis online. So this is work somewhere in between math, law, and also other subfield. In this case, interdisciplinarity is somehow visible. Research or science is about questions, and in many cases, questions to which we don't know the answers in advance. So I can't imagine not supporting interdisciplinarity. Now, last but not least, on the perfect cooperation between the supervisor and the PhD candidate. Time and respect are the key elements here. First, when it comes to supervisors, I see two solutions, so to speak. First of all, we should all make every effort in order to make our PhD candidates aware of the state of the art in their domains, in our domains. In fact, our PhD candidates should be aware, should know where the cognition horizon lies, where the limits lie, or where they don't lie. Secondly, I would say that the supervisor should not be afraid of the student becoming greater than the master. So we shouldn't be afraid, we shouldn't be anxious about the fact or the possibility of our students becoming better than we are. I remember myself being a doctoral candidate. I'm not sure I had the best approach towards my cooperation with my supervisor. I don't think it was the worst one. And I also think that I engaged in a healthy, good cooperation with my PhD students. How did we do that? I think all people of research should be somehow humble. We should understand that we don't understand some things, that we will only learn about certain things in a week or two, and then we should also be mature. Being humble and being mature leads to good partnership, which lays the foundation for science.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask Professor Andrzej Tarlecki to answer this question. Well, I've actually counted here 4 questions in this one single question, so let me address them. First of all, the role played by doctoral students or organizations when it comes to choosing the rector. I was a bit surprised to hear Professor Novak, because as far as I can remember the law, regardless of which of the rectors we are dealing with, all of them require the consent of the student's government. As I mentioned, the deputy rector for teaching students and PhD candidates should be in charge of student and PhD candidates. And once I'm elected, I will be discussing the potential candidates for this post with the student governments and the PhD candidates' governments. I hope we can reach an agreement on this issue, and then within the formal process, the relevant bodies of the students' government and PhD candidates' government will approve of this person. I think it's feasible because all of us want this person to be both competent and will also love them to have heart for students' issues and PhD candidates' cause, and to have a humane approach. Now, this is as far as electing deputy rector is concerned, as far as perfect cooperation between the supervisor and the PhD candidate is concerned, I've already said that this relationship is very close, almost like an intimate relationship. In a perfect situation, we have several years of close, intense cooperation and partnership when approaching research. I would like to endorse what Professor Strzelecki has said, that the partnership should be the pivotal thing in the relationship between the PhD candidate and the supervisor, because we have a common goal to conduct interesting, good research and to have as a result, interesting, good dissertation, and this is something that should unite us and to allow us to cooperate systematically. I cannot imagine that we don't have direct meetings, conversations, that there is no reaction whatsoever, even though it may be a critical reaction, to the ideas presented by the PhD candidate, and that I think that this research should be carried out together. This is indispensable if we want to teach how the research is supposed to look like and, of course, obtain results and finalize this stage of PhD candidate's life with a very good PhD dissertation. So the master-student relationship based on intellectual partnership and joint work. And we should demand of each other ideas, work, reliability and criticism, well-conceived scientific academic criticism that will foster the best ideas, because the supervisor and the supervisor will have a lot of formalities to take and to do. The law stipulates those formalities, and this has to be done, and this is something we have to acknowledge. As far as interdisciplinarity is concerned, I would say that we should start with interdisciplinarity of the research as such, no matter if it's carried out by the PhD candidates or mature researchers at our university, at the University of Warsaw. Very often, this is an issue, first of all, because we are a bit enclosed in our silos, and we sometimes are a bit reluctant to open to external problems. So there should be encouragements and incentives to work at the borders of this, get involved in this. I think there are some organizational hindrances. We have to create conditions for good, small or big projects within interdisciplinary teams. And I have a proposal to create a mechanism for supporting those labs that are interdisciplinary, who complement each other with their knowledge from different fields. I think PhD students who will be in such teams will contribute in these multidisciplinary task forces or teams or labs. There are some technical solutions that need to be implemented quickly, and these are envisaged by the law, for example, co-tutel or co-supervisor or auxiliary supervisor, and of course on an informal level we should have connections with different labs from different places. I think it will take an effort. It requires money to finance it, and this money should be found. And of course, because these interdisciplinary studies require and deserve this money. Now, in terms of leveling up the old and new system doctoral candidate situation, as far as finances are concerned, we've mentioned that when answering the second question, I can repeat that the formal prerequisites for doing this are different, but I think we should strive to level up the scholarships, and I think that there should be rises in terms of scholarships, and this is already taking place, and this should be done, continue to be done. There should be conditions laid for supporting doctoral candidates in terms of their international cooperation with researchers. So all of the doctoral students should enjoy such support, as there is no difference between us and the PhD candidates. We are all researchers, and we should receive such support regardless of whether we are from the old or new systems. The same goes for applying for grants. The same goes for employment at the university or earning money at the university. These conditions should be equal, and in fact, this is actually the case now. Thank you very much for your answer. And with that, we are passing to question number 6. This is a question, but this question will be addressed first by Professor Strzelecki, then by Professor Tarlecki, and then by Professor Eliza Novak. Here is a question addressed by Anita Zawisza. Will you find employment for vast majority of PhD candidates at the faculties of University of Warsaw? Will the candidates find an employment at the faculties of the University of Warsaw for most of the PhD candidates? Quite different to the previous question. This question is brief, but it concerns the PhD candidates again. So first I would like to ask Professor Strzelecki to answer this question. First of all, I would like to thank you for this brief, clear and intelligible question. It's a pleasure to answer such questions. Well, in my opinion, it is not that Rector finds employment for all the graduates of PhD studies, or for all the MA graduates, or BA graduates for that matter. If they want to search for a job and wouldn't like to continue and go to MA programs, my role and the role of the Rector is to carry out, together with the relevant authorities, heads of the doctoral schools, the Senate and the Rector's team, to take care of the teaching quality and the level of knowledge at the doctoral studies, so that the labor market looks out for the PhD candidates, our PhD candidates and graduates, and not vice versa. I think there are many examples of this at our university. University training allows us to find our way on the labor market, even if we are not we are not working in our taught profession. PhD schools should give PhD candidates specific competences that go beyond a narrowly sketched field of study. By this I mean the ability to work in a team, ability to manage time. I think we should take care of it, and then the jobs will be knocking on the doors of our PhD candidates and not vice versa. Thank you. And now Professor Tarlecki. Now, what I got from this question was that the question was about employment for PhD candidates at our faculties. Well, if we pose the question this way, the answer is slightly different, ladies and gentlemen. Doctoral studies, and I believe that they will be in the future concluded by all of the PhD candidates successfully. This is not a guarantee for employment at the University of Warsaw. Again, initial employment at the University of Warsaw does not guarantee you a research and teaching experience at the University of Warsaw until the end of your days. The HR policy at the University of Warsaw has to encourage diversity in different communities, and I believe that the HR policy conducted by the deans in their faculties should build a sort of a pyramid which is wide at its bottom. So we have thousands of students and several thousands of PhD candidates, but it should get narrow when we go with each level. So we shouldn't have too many employees, and I think, and this is my proposal, we should strive to gain as many young researchers, postdoctoral researchers, senior assistants, or even assistant professor, to have them for 2, 3, 4 years, and we employ a vast number of young and able PhD holders, and then continue to work with them. But we have to realize that not all of them will be prepared to dedicate themselves to teaching career, researcher career at the University of Warsaw. We need to have transfer, we need to have an influx of new people, but that also means that some people need to resign, need to quit jobs at the University of Warsaw. So unfortunately we'll not be able to guarantee employment for all the PhD candidates at our university, but what we do have to take care of is that the PhD degree at our university is a prestigious degree, and that people who see it say these are good candidates who will be efficient in different conditions, in governmental administration, in business at the university, and in a widely conceived community. So these should be excellent people, trained excellent, but not all of them will become full professors. Now, Eliza Novak. I would like to thank Professor Tawlecki for the remark that he made, because fortunately enough, I said I will consult with the students, the deputy rector for the research, and I will briefly say why I think this is correct, because I believe that PhD candidates are young researchers, and of course this is a third level of training, but in fact I think that PhD candidates, since they are involved in research, they should be under the Deputy Rector for Research. Now, when it comes to employment issues for PhD holders who graduate from PhD schools, I have a similar view to the predecessors, but although I would argue for this view in a different way. First of all, I do believe that our PhD candidates and degree holders should be, or are in fact, well trained, will have excellent degrees, and part of them will probably find their way into the faculties of our university, but the other part will definitely find jobs in other places, and they should do so. Why? Because we are very eager as university to strengthen our position in the outer environment, both in Poland and internationally. And this usually takes place through the careers of our graduates, BA graduates, MA graduates, and PhD holders. So even if there was an opportunity to employ all the PhD holders from our doctoral schools, we would be stuck within our community, and it should not be the case. We want our graduates to be employed by other universities as best as we are. Well, in Poland, in fact, we are the best university, but in Europe or across the world, you can find better universities, maybe. So, and I can see the rector here smiling. We can see the dean smiling here, and I think we should be interested in employing people from other universities, because this is something that is beneficiary for us. Second of all, I have always been a supporter of decentralization, and I'll continue to be a supporter of decentralization. So I think that, in fact, it is not the rector who decides upon employment, but other people. The supervisor, the chair of the department, head of the institute, and if that person wins the competition, the rector then formally signs off on the employment. And third of all, we shouldn't be really worried about jobs for our graduates of our PhD studies, because not all of them will be interested to work at the University of Warsaw or other universities. I think that training or holding a PhD degree becomes ever more common across the world, and I believe that these people will have many job offers from not only academic institutions, but also research institutions, multinational companies, etc. So I think that at this stage we shouldn't be particularly worried about job prospects for PhD holders who graduate from our PhD studies at the University of Warsaw. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for these answers, and now let us proceed to the 7th question. This question has a surprise in it, as you might have figured it out. The question also concerns PhD candidates, gentlemen. The surprise is that this question is exactly the same as question number 5, but I will read it out, of course. What is your plan for leveling up the situation of the old system doctoral students and the new system doctoral students in order to provide for the same opportunities for financial development, and how would you like to guarantee interdisciplinarity on the PhD studies, and what is your perfect cooperation between your view on perfect cooperation between the PhD candidate and the supervisor, and what role should be played by the organs of students' governments and PhD government for the student and PhD government. So I think the fate of PhD candidates is not easy. Therefore, I would like to offer you an additional drawing and draw one question that would not overlap with the question. Would not overlap with this question. We are nodding in favor of this, and now, full of anxiety, I will now draw the question. I will read the question. This is a question from Justyna Sobolewska. Now, when PhD financing of research conducted by PhD candidates at a different faculty, at an individual faculty, should be worked out by the faculty or standardized. Do you think that the present system of financing for young or early career researchers is sufficient? This question does not overlap with previous questions, so I'll perhaps read it out again. Do you think that financing research by the PhD candidates conducting their research at a specific faculty should be regulated individually by each faculty, or should it be standardized? And the second part of this question, do you think that the present system of financial support for research carried out by early career scholars is sufficient? So first of all, standardization, and then on the present system. Is it sufficient or not? According to our regulations and the method we are following, the first person to answer this question will be Professor Andrzej Tarlecki. Next in line will be Professor Eliza Novak, and followed by Professor Paweł Strzelecki. Will you start then? Of course, I will. Okay, I will, as before, answer starting from the second part. Is the system sufficient? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we always will need more money, no matter how much we have. I know that the needs will grow and the money is insufficient. Of course, the system should be built up, should be complemented, both from the organizational, in the organizational sphere, and also with finances. So more research should be supported by the PhD candidates. This is what we have already been doing. Bear in mind that in the Excellence Initiative Research University program, we have special research financing lines dedicated to early career scholars, starting from micro grants. That system has already been kicked off, and PhD candidates and even MA students can apply for support. And with this mechanism, we can support with relatively tiny amounts of money, trips for internships or conferences or publication, support in translating these publications or papers, or applying for grants. This is something that is supported by micro grants, and this is where the PhD candidates should apply for additional financing. Of course, this is one of the few mechanisms in the Excellence Initiative. More of them will be rolled out soon. So we are building up on this, and there will be more financing for early career scholars research. There should be plenty of this of these funds for early career scholars. Now, when it comes to financing PhD candidates research on the faculty level, I understand that we are talking here about both the old system and new system PhD candidates who are supervised by professors who are employed by faculties, of course. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that one of the advantages of the new Act on the higher education is that it has unified several financing methods for PhD candidates. So it has streamlined several sources of financing into one. There's been many suggestions that within the university this should be split. I did feel, and I continue to feel so, that this system is flexible, and this is its advantage. And the fact that financing goes directly, is streamlined directly to the faculties is its benefit. Obviously, this means that the amount of money that the end faculty will receive is counted on the basis of several coefficients. For example, on how much will it cost for the PhD candidates to conduct their research? And there is an index for that. And we've been discussing it, and within our HR policy, we've been supporting different faculties. For example, there is a difference between what Faculty of Maths receives and Faculty of Management receives. So this is decentralized, and I do believe that young early career scholars should be definitely included when it comes to disbursing these finances, these funds. But I don't believe that these should be centralized. And the algorithms should be centralized. Let me repeat once again. At the central level, we should have a special pocket of financing for this purpose. On the other hand, we have to keep in mind that doctoral schools do have authority to shape the training of their students and, for example, to invite visitors from the outside. And this is something that helps PhD candidates to learn new skills. Let me repeat once again. I think that regardless of the money that is funded, that is funding faculties' research, there should be an independent central funds at the university level. And of course, the PhD candidates should apply for grants, external grants, both those dedicated for them and within the teams of researchers. Now I would like to ask Professor Eliza Novak to answer this question. Thank you very much indeed. I believe that PhD students their research is not financed sufficiently. And I think that there are two opportunities, ways to get these funds. There are external funds and internal funds. The latter are those in the budget, from the budget of the University of Warsaw, and the external will come from grants, foundations, or business sector. And I think that in this sphere we will see development, and once we have the first graduates of doctoral schools, and once we start these PhD theses will be defended, and they will enjoy high level, the heads of the PhD schools will apply for support to different institutions that I've just mentioned, and I believe that these funding will appear. As my predecessor, I believe that you shouldn't fix everything on a central level, but you have to keep in mind that there are some faculties and institutes who are quite strong in terms of their academic excellence, but also have strong funding, and they can cope and subsidize their PhD candidates, be it subsidies for their papers or their trips for conferences. And there are smaller faculties or institutes who are excellent in terms of their academic excellence, but they are not sort of market-oriented faculties, and they are not always able to cope with extra funding. So I think we should extend a helping hand to the PhD candidates who come from these smaller faculties. And I think the central authorities can play a role here, both the rector and the deputy rector for PhD, who will be in charge of PhD students. So I think we will need to support these people. And I really don't know whether this issue will be completely sorted out, because we are cooperating with many universities, and I don't think that there is a place where the central university authorities always disperse all the funding for the PhD candidates, and I think we have to live with it, and we have to be we have to express our solidarity, and we have to share our riches as a university, but also share our achievements and success. Thank you very much. All right, now it's Professor Strzelecki's turn. First, let me start by thanking Ms. Justyna Sobolewska for this question. It's a multi-dimensional, multi-layer question which allows me to touch upon several things. First, I would like to start by something unexpected. Let me dwell into legal conditions that we need to face and acknowledge. On the one hand, the new law, the new Act on Higher Education, the so-called Act 2.0, differentiates between those PhD candidates who started studying before the 1st of October 2019 and those who started on October the 1st, 2019. And I think that this is sometimes not acknowledged by people from the outside of the university or even from the inside, because they regard their activities of all these PhD candidates as similar, and we need to cope with that. Let me start by the second part of this question. Do you believe that the present system is good, or does it require modification? Well, if the present system was okay, we would have much more success rate in terms of completing PhD degree. So allow me not to continue this thread. And now the second thing that I wanted to address, the new bill gives huge power and authority to the rector. Many people are anxious about it, but I would like to see this power as being duty-bound with teamwork, with different stakeholders at the university. I've already mentioned that we should invest in people and their working conditions. This is what this question concerns. Supporting for financing research by early career scholars. This is supporting human capital that will result in the growth of our academic community. We should support these people who contribute to our parametric assessment. Now, the question was, should the faculties establish individual criteria for funding, or should it be established at a central level? I am here unequivocal. The law says that it is the rector who should guarantee a modest support for all PhD candidates. We can use Excellence Initiative funds for this. By streaming mini grants for publications, for papers, for contacts with visiting professors, that should be done. And of course, another question is how these resources will be used by the PhD candidates and their supervisors, and we will not be able to standardize this thing. You have to be aware that depending on the fields, the support will differ. And we should establish this support in conversation with representatives of these different fields. But of course, nothing can be guaranteed centrally and assured centrally. It is clear to me that we should strive to employ our PhD candidates in our research projects, because it is here that we are doing research and are posing to ourselves questions and answering them, in fact, answering the questions that are posed by the science. And that is why a large part of support for the PhD candidates will come from different faculties. And of course, we should be open to that. This is pretty obvious to me. They should be free to use the libraries. They should enjoy working conditions, decent working conditions. They should have access to experimental or other resources of a university for all those who conduct interdisciplinary research. So there should be a minimum standard of support, and this should be guaranteed, and this is something that the rector should be in charge of. But then all these intricacies that are connected with the specificity of our research, or the supervisor we have, or the field of study we are in, these should be adjusted individually on different faculties, with the idea that we should support ourselves. Thank you very, very much, Professor. By this, we have concluded the question phase of our meeting today. And now we are passing to final remarks. Although the final remarks should not be long, not take longer than 5 minutes. So let us start by the one who has presented his plan of action first. So first of all, we'll listen to Professor Andrzej Tawlecki, followed by Professor Eliza Novak and Professor Paweł Strzelecki. I would like to ask you to give this 5-minute long speech, Professor Tawlecki. Not more than 5 minutes, right?
Well, you can speak for less than 5 minutes. Well, Professor, dear Chairman, so to speak, thank you so much for all the questions which were raised and which weren't raised. I think that we can get those other questions, can't we? Yes, of course you can. I think the questions constitute a certain database of issues and affairs that are important for the university community. Thank you for this suggestion. Well, it is me who should thank for the questions and for the engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, we have responded 7 questions. This does not cover all the issues and affairs of the university. We are currently preparing and we will be publishing the programs. The programs won't touch upon every single detail, as they have to be limited in the scope and amount of paper, so to speak, that we cover. We will continue our talks. I think our colleagues and I agree on this. We are here for us. I'm waiting for your email, for your remarks, including critical remarks, including what you think we do wrong, what has to be done, what has to be enhanced. Thank you so much for all your engagement and for all the questions that are yet to come. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, as I have said already, a difficult tenure. Well, all of them are difficult in some way, but we will face many choices, many decisions, and many selections as authorities and as the university community. I would like to promise one thing. All the decisions taken by me as the rector will be the product of joint action, of collegial work, of cooperation, including all members of the university community. This refers, for instance, to the strategy of the university for the upcoming year. I am deeply convinced that individual decisions taken by the deputy rectors and deputy rectors teams will constitute the outcomes of them listening to what you're saying, because all the decisions have to be based on content, rules, standards that we have to observe as the best Polish university. We have to bear the well-being of the university in mind. And this is our key goal. Of course, aligned with individual goals and individual well-being. I am convinced that in order to manage the university well, we have to know the university, its diversity, its details related to its life, and that are different depending on the unit, on the situation, on what happens today, tomorrow, and after tomorrow when it comes to regulating the university law, enhancing, amending, etc. I can assure you that coming to the Kazimierzowski Palace, to the rector's office a couple of years ago, I weren't convinced of me being 100% ID perfect here. Now I am convinced that I can fulfill my duties in a reliable and in a diligent way, and I thank you for your engagement. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, Professor Eliza Novak. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by referring to the Friday meeting, online meeting with our students. I was asked then how much time I could devote to the university. I answered 90%. And then I was also asked what I would do with the remaining 10%. So here comes the answer: I will sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my gratitude to my colleagues, to the committee, thanks to whom we were able to respond to all those questions, and for all of you, because we know that a number of people are engaged in organizing the event, and also a number of people participate in the event. If I were chosen, if I were elected, I would wish for the following university. I would like to do something for the university. Of course, I won't start from scratch because my colleagues have already done a lot, but we all are aiming at creating the university that is innovative, that is characterized by entrepreneurship, that is the best, #1 university in Poland. I would like us to show that we are innovative and that entrepreneurship is our daily practice to our students and PhD students. In 2019, we've discussed what the university should look like, whether it should be centralized or decentralized. My predecessors, the previous speakers, have spoken about the authority of the rector, but I would like for the university to be a democratic entity. I think that first and foremost, those who are at the very bottom, those who are inside the affair, so to speak, know how to conduct research, how to manage and how to organize things. I would like the university to be open, and I would like the universities to support those units which are a little bit underprivileged, frequently without their fault in the development of affairs. I would like the university to be the university of everyone. I have spoken about the university as a common good of the librarians, administrative staff, teachers, students, technical teams, guards, and many other employees. I would like everyone to feel safe at the university, and I also would like the rector, irrespective of who he is, finally, ultimately, supports that. I would like the university to be safe from the social point of view, from the point of view of financial security, and also from the point of view of staff. I'm not speaking about hiring someone who doesn't want to work, but I'm speaking about other situations. I used to be the deputy rector, and I know what happens at different faculties. There are people who love university, who love this place, who want to work here and want to be safe. Of course, sometimes relocation is needed. Human resources relocation, human capital relocation, so to speak. That notwithstanding, the vast majority of employees came to the university in order to work. They work wisely, they work in a manner that I wouldn't like to refer to as hard, but they work for our shared common good, and I would like the university to be open for everyone, to everyone. We cannot close our doors. We don't close them, of course, we are not closing, but we have to be open. At the same time, I would like the university to be accepting and tolerant, except for the most extreme ones. I would like the university to cooperate with the local authorities, with general authorities. I agree that we have to speak sometimes in very fundamental matters related to the human being. Then the university and its employees should take a stand. I would like to witness the university being well organized. Everyone has enumerated those elements which have to be enhanced or developed related to IT, the circulation of documentation and other aspects of the university life. I would like the university, as it is actually, to be developing and to be a research facility. We can't lose what we have already achieved, but we have to support our colleagues, including young researchers, by encouraging them to take part in our projects in our research, by supporting them in writing publications and in their participation in conferences. I also think that we should aim at supporting the units in their pursuits to obtain the best, to be assessed as belonging to the best category possible and not be afraid of the category they would get. I would like to support the employees, all of the employees, at all the levels, including professors. I believe that if you give me the chance, I will be able to translate my expertise into what I have just enumerated. Thank you so much. And now I would like to give the floor to Professor Paweł Strzelecki. Ladies and gentlemen, both of the predecessors have spoken for quite a while, therefore I will be short and sweet. It is for you to assess all of these programs, which are at the same time not dissimilar, because everyone wants the greater good for the university, and what is dissimilar, because our programs differ. Rector is a post that I associate with great responsibility, and I think that my work would be actually serving university if I were chosen, if I were elected. I will bring all my expertise and all my experience of the total of a dozen of years into enhancing research management. I also have management experience. I've been managing a faculty that is well and is functioning. Managing the university is something that I perceive as a collaboration, and I think that we should always respect one another, respect the other person's feelings, the other person's opinions, and then we should be able to talk about our plans and our goals. At the same time, we should aim at the joint goal. My deputy rector team thinks in a very similar way, and therefore we are going to consult the program prior to its operationalization. So if we were to play this team game, we will do our best to fulfill all the tasks, at the same time cooperating with you. I think that would be it. Thank you so much for your attention. And I think that since I am the last one speaking, I can say thank you. We express our gratitude. Ladies and gentlemen, let me express my gratitude as well to all those of you who participated remotely in this meeting. First and foremost, I would like to thank our candidates, professors. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for acting for the university. Thank you for sharing your values. And thank you for all that you've said. All those words that were said are important not only for the university. I hope that the goals of the meeting were fulfilled, were reached, and that this meeting will help us to elect the rector. I also hope that this all will be beneficial to the university. According to the ongoing tradition of rooting the university values in ancient values, I think that this would be it. Thank you so much for your attention.